crosswalks at signalized intersections within the county. Most of them do not have any type of refuge or landing in the median itself. It's just one long crossing that can be 100 feet or more in length. But it's been shown to be a best practice to have these little median noses extend through the crosswalk in order to give people a refuge point and also to calm traffic at the intersection. They can't take the corner as fast as they otherwise could. And so enhancements to the median noses of these crosswalks can provide a benefit as well. And we've also looked at educational strategies that are targeted to certain high-risk populations. And this slide presents the list of educational strategies that we have developed, and so we wanted to kind of get your input on that as well. One thing related to adult cycling skills classes, and we've identified some of the areas of the county where there is a higher incidence of bicycle crashes, and so we may want to target these areas of the county first in terms of the implementation of these techniques. And the League of American Bicyclists, the Florida Bicycle Association as well, has a lot of information on their website about conducting the adult cycling skills class. I know, Fran, you saw this implemented very effectively in some of your prior work as well.
Yes, definitely. We had a bicycle safety class in Birmingham, and I think it really helps with the bicycle to bike crashes, especially because then you can really learn how to ride as a group and how to communicate so that you won't have a potential pileup. And I think that was some of the instances that we saw on Ocean Drive and one of the corridors that was.
I would suggest also adding Lake Worth
Okay.
to that list, I think. I mean, again, portions of Lake Worth corridor I realize are Green Acres or Military Palm Springs and so on, but I think Lake Worth has a huge usage cycling.
Driver and pedestrian education can be conducted through signage, street banners, or pamphlets that can be distributed in a particular area, and again targeted to particular populations as well. The idea of visible enforcement, which basically visible enforcement is a term that's coming out of the law enforcement community where for a particular period of time, police officers will focus enforcement on a certain type of violation, either not yielding to pedestrians in a crosswalk or encouraging pedestrians to not cross mid-block but to cross at crosswalks. And it's typically done by actually promoting that you're going to be doing this through radio ads, through other types of social media blasts and things like that, even signs along the roadway in advance. This is from a program in Orlando, these images are, called Best Foot Forward, where the law enforcement community publicized in advance that they were going to be doing this, and then went out and actually conducted this visible enforcement along crosswalks, unsignalized crosswalks on a four-lane roadway. They even got the media involved in Orlando. The media actually came out and filmed the officers as they were conducting this enforcement, and even interviewed some of the motorists that were pulled over and given a warning for not yielding to a pedestrian or not stopping on red before they made the right turn. Many motorists were just sort of blowing through that right turn, as we heard earlier. And so it's sort of like, I think the media presence probably is more important than the actual few people that actually get pulled over, because it basically goes out to the whole community when the media gets involved. There's some ideas of this shaming, but just to be able to see that on the media coverage of that, the television media in that case, it really had a great effect for the Best Foot Forward program in Orlando, because a much broader spectrum of the community gets to see it than just the relatively few people that actually get pulled over. So things like that can help communicate the importance of pedestrian safety within the community.
Well, in West Miami Beach, we had the police department have got a program going once a year, they enforce the laws of traffic, safety for bicycles, pedestrians, everybody. And they will approach from 3 different angles. One was to educate the motorists, the pedestrians, and the cyclists on the laws that applies to them. The second phase would be to actually give warnings to people.
Okay.
You know, if you're attempting to do something that was illegal, give the warning so next time, remember. And the third phase and last is actually giving tickets.
Yes.
And they
Progressive ticket.
so they will do like a 3 or 6, something like a 5-month program, and they will give as many as 1,600 tickets.
Yeah.
And the warnings also, so they track that. And unfortunately, you know, from my perspective, things like it needs to be a regular, program. You can't just do it once a month, once a year, and then 3-4 months, and then take off and try to do it next year.
Yeah.
People forget and all those things. But I think that maybe as part of this study, some sort of recommendation should be announced or part of the study put together to get the county, MPO, and jurisdictions to strategize funding towards a program like that.
Yeah.
Because I think that would go a long ways in trying to improve safety in the county.
If you like YouTube, check out one of the YouTube videos of one of the television media coverage of the Best Foot Forward program in Orlando. It's quite entertaining. Open streets events are just ways of encouraging people to think about walking and bicycling in a different way, as well as exposing a wider percentage of the community to these types of events, and just fun street festivals for the community to participate in, and can also be associated sometimes with pop-up projects like the pop-up bike lane that you see here that can provide people a taste of what could be done within their community in terms of implementing higher level bicycle or walking facilities. We've identified a few areas where a Spanish language outreach program or pedestrian safety campaign in Spanish language would be effective based on the demographic data that we studied earlier within the study, and overlaying that demographic information with areas of high pedestrian crashes. And a school education campaign as well. I know this is something that has been done to great effect in Miami-Dade County with both the Walk Safe and the Bike Safe programs and other areas of the state as well. But it started in Miami-Dade, and Katrina is our representative of this particular program. But they have been able to demonstrate amazing effectiveness in the evidence-based follow-ups in the reduction in juvenile pedestrian hit by car crashes or trauma center admittances since about 2000, when this program first was admitted. An amazing reduction in juvenile pedestrian hit by car crashes that far outpaces the rest of the population curve as a whole. And so this education component can be just as or more important than anything that's done with the street, and trying to get people to understand how to walk and bike safely. Progressive ticketing, Javier has already explained quite eloquently what that is for us. It's a staged approach that gives people a chance to be educated first. And the law enforcement officers will tell you that education, basically, that is kind of their primary focus, and that helps to improve enforcement in the long run.
The city of Delray Beach did that last year, the progressive ticketing. They had addition like 1,000 citations like that.
And then we've all heard the anecdotal stories of the officer that didn't realize the pedestrian laws and things like that, or that bicyclists had a certain right that they had on the roadway. And there's a lot of information out there, PSAs, also just training videos and training programs from a variety of different sources, America Walks, the Florida Bicycle Association, when it comes to officer training. There's some formal programs as well. And so in areas where there's a high volume of pedestrians and cyclists and a high incidence of crashes, that's something that can be become part of the law enforcement training, is this officer training related to pedestrian and bicycle safety. And then finally, the another outcome of this study is to try to develop targets related to the reduction in injuries and fatalities for pedestrians and bicyclists. And so we've put together this table as a draft, as a starting point, as to what the current value of injuries, fatalities are. And these are annual numbers from the study. Are those the 2014 or the average? 2014. So we're seeing there in current value is the 2014 annual number of injuries and fatalities. And the MPO, as part of its Complete Streets policy, had a Vision Zero statement within the policy. And so ultimately we do want to, of course, have a policy that even one fatality is too many. We don't want to have any type of fatalities, or we don't want to be planning for fatalities, but we want to be setting measurable targets that we can measure the implementation over time of these facilities. And of course it will take a while for infrastructure improvements to go through the funding process. It will take a while for educational strategies to take an effect within the community. And so we've established targets for injury and fatality reductions for a 10-year look, and also the 2040 target, which is consistent with the long-range transportation plan's horizon year.
Sure. I think the 2015 numbers are out now, right? Like usually in July they come out?
Yes, I think they are,
So
yeah.
maybe we could update that for current value.
Yes, we could potentially do that, although the study is looking at 2010 through 14, because that was the most current year of full data at the time that the study began. So it was pulling that from the 2014 data within the study. But we could update that.
These numbers are just for that year of 2014, so maybe if we show this table. And I think that, and we didn't do this in the Complete Streets policy, but I think that maybe it would be good to show or say the percentage, like we would like to reduce by a certain, because looking at hard numbers, it's kind of, you can do the math and be like, we want to cut it by half each time, but maybe just like having a percentage to go along with that raw number of 17 deaths, versus.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on the targets and performance measures?
Just going back just quickly to the vision, I thought that in the end, and I was part of some of those discussions a while back, we agreed that the vision should be 0 fatalities, but we all agreed that it was unrealistic to have a 0 injury vision. Kind of this utopian situation that not even in Copenhagen or Stockholm they have. So I still see the zeros, which may lead people to think that the ultimate vision is to, wow, it would be great. I mean, it's so, well, kind of unrealistic against for injuries. Fatalities, yes, I understand, but so just, obviously you don't want to put a number, but at the same time it could be a little misleading.
It would stand out if we were to have a non-zero number.
I think idealistically, everybody's vision is let's have no fatalities, let's have no injuries. So I think for a vision, I think that's the ultimate goal.
Okay.
Again, not even Copenhagen or Stockholm, which have some of the best accidents, have that. It's not even part of their goal. Their goal is 0 fatalities. Their vision is 0 fatalities, not 0 injuries, even though.
Well, injuries allow us to track a data point in addition to fatalities, especially with bicyclists. You kind of want to track the injuries as well. Fortunately, the number of bicycle fatalities is tends to be in the single digits, and so if you have a year where there's 5 and another year that there's 2, have you really made 250% improvement, or is that just randomness within the data? So injuries allow you to track a number where you are confident that there's a lot less randomness within the data. So I think it's important to continue to track the injury data as well.
I think in some ways you want to tie this up to the bicycle pedestrian master plans or some sort of a comprehensive plan or something that gets approved by a political body. Otherwise, often we get the argument between the technicians, the technical people, and the political bodies. You need this. They say, no, you don't. We don't only have certain money for this sort of things.
Yeah.
So I think that having, like Valerie says, having a percentage tied up to that, incrementally you're going to be reducing by 5% in 5 years, 10%, 10 years, and so on. But at the same time, make it perhaps a requirement for each jurisdiction as they do their bicycle master plan to have those figures included as part of the plans. So that way it goes all tied together. Otherwise, you're going to have this document that's going to be all by itself sitting here and nothing will be talking to it.
Yeah, you're talking about tying it somehow to implementation.
Right. That's going to be the key to get to Vision Zero.
Yeah. And hopefully it can be used as a resource for practitioners that are working in these certain areas. If we have identified a high crash corridor and it's evidence-based, such as the City of West Palm Beach project along Broadway, this is now another data point that could be used to support safe streets improvements along Broadway. So using it creatively, I think, is going to be important, and that's why it's important to have this safety team that has formed as part of the study, but you all will be implementation champions of this project as moving forward. If you have projects within your own individual work programs, reference this document and you use it as justification for implementing safe streets improvements.
So one question, and some of the specific corridors that you looked at, in which you included some recommendations or some measures. Did you look at the details as to what may have been the cause of the specific accident in those areas? So was your recommendation based on the analysis of what was the most prevalent situations that caused the accidents, or the fatalities or the accidents in this specific corridor or hotspot?
The way that it's worded in the electronic crash database is called first harmful event. So it describes some of the situations associated with the crash, such as if it was a right turn or a left hook crash for bicyclists at an intersection. So we are able to analyze that type of information from a broad, holistic perspective. We don't get into, at this level of analysis, actually, getting in and reading crash reports or trying to, solve the specific issue of a specific crash that happened in the past. But the data does summarize some of that for us in those things like the first harmful event.
So I was thinking certain intersections, let's say military and Okeechobee, that we have, or military and Lake Worth. I mean, if we could kind of take a more in-depth look at what specifically was the cause, at least identified in those reports for those incidents there, that may give us a better idea of what the specific recommendations, what are the more appropriate measures. I mean, maybe in some places alcohol was very prevalent in a specific situation, or the nighttime because lighting is really bad. So we can tailor the recommendations more to exactly what
you can. Yes, it is.
I know it is feasible. I wasn't sure whether, at least in some of the recommendations, that you had some measures and then you have some locations in which you recommended those measures. I wasn't sure whether that was the result of some sort of.
It was, yes, it was. It was the result of looking at the distribution of nighttime crashes, of pedestrian, juvenile age crashes, and even sometimes some cross-pollination of data, elderly pedestrian crashes at night or something like that. So you are able to make some of those correlations within the data that's in this study. And when the study documentation is published, then all of us will have it as a resource that we could go back to and look up what the information was about some of those more specific.
So we should be able, municipalities, entities, we should be able to look at the disaggregated data that. If I want Broadway, for example, that we're discussing, if I want to go and look at the Broadway data that you guys have, I should be able to access it and see.
We will have a table of information that describes the statistics associated with those crashes. Now, if it's an analysis that we specifically conducted, we'll have it in the report. If it's something different than what we conducted, then you would have to maybe
But at least
utilize
for
the
the
data itself.
corridors, the top 10 corridors and the hotspots.
And
That
yeah, there's
would be.
more information associated with the top 10 corridors and hotspots
Okay.
than there are the county.
2 points I wanted to make is, of course, yes, I think you already kind of pointed to the fact that Lisa and Stuart have already provided kind of backup information for each of the corridors and hotspots that give you a little bit more context on lighting condition and surface. But then also, this plan is kind of a jumping off point where the next step could possibly be a road safety audit. I think we discussed that briefly earlier. So for some corridors or segments that we think are kind of more of a priority, we can definitely do more of a in-depth analysis based on who the road right-of-way owner is. We would hope that that entity would take that part.
Yeah, hopefully there would be appetite for conducting those more detailed road safety audits, especially along Lake Worth Road, along Okeechobee, along US 1. So it's going to be the municipality involved, the county traffic engineering, FDOT as well, but also multidisciplinary approach. With the road safety audits, you want to make sure that one of the aspects of road safety audits is that you're getting the opinions of a broad range of users of the street as well as agencies that have involvement with the street.
So is there any kind of an implementation timeline? Obviously, engineering and road reconfiguration is, some of it's long-term, some of it could be short fix, but like education, targeted law enforcement efforts and things like that. I don't see, is there a plan to bring all of those people together? Because I think that's one of the things, obviously, that seems to be missing at this table is the law enforcement component, which is a big component.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's just going to be follow-up by the various agencies involved in order to continue to make this a priority and be able to implement it. It's going to have to be, I know you all have relationships with the law enforcement
Right,
community,
I wanted to
and that's something that can be.
Yeah, that's something I wanted to mention earlier, that MPO does interact heavily with the CCST, FDOT's community safety traffic team. And so what we have been able to do on occasion is kind of outreach activities, specifically one at Lake Worth near one of the spots that we actually identified in the plan, and you're aware. So hopefully we can continue to work in that frame where we're, hand in hand with law enforcement, FDOT, ourselves, and trauma center, people who really kind of understand the issue, and we'll be able to take this to the safety team and say, hey, these are the places that we've already identified. Let's come up with a schedule or a strategy to target them.
Does the plan with the countermeasures, will it include like implementation agency identified, like guys, like these are things that would be great if they happen, like an actual like next step, like CTST team, whatever, law enforcement, or I don't know, just some sort of like direction to versus just throwing out ideas that would be nice.
Yeah, definitely. We can have a list of agencies that we already kind of correspond with or engage with. Our wheelhouse is a little limited. We don't kind of establish any policy. What we can do, like Stuart said, is be champions. So we can identify those resources and those agencies and work hand in hand with them. But it will be up to us to kind of continually move the ball forward.
Well, now that you've identified the top 10 for corridors and intersections, so we can break it out to who has jurisdiction in law enforcement for each of those areas, and then between Bob and I, we can assist on getting direct contacts with that each agency, so they know from data, and they have an idea. They don't, they have a lot of other issues they're entertaining, but from this group, this is the target. This is your issue.
City of Delray Beach or West Palm Police, this is your issue, this is your concentration, this is the recommendations, and here's your data.
Yeah, you can break it down by agency, like you're saying. It would be a great way of kind of having that list focused and sticking to it.
So maybe, offering to help roll that part out on making the contacts to get the right person at that agency, so you might have to buy them.
Great. And I think that, at least identifying what lead agencies would, or who would be like kind of next step for that countermeasure. Because we may not own a road or anything, but we may be able to help go present the data to the city commission, or to someone who can fund that campaign, or bring it to the CPST if that's the right agency to like disperse, follow up with the next steps.
Yeah.
Or with funding procedures, like a grant or something that comes out that can be used for the implementation of these projects.
Can I ask a question of the group? Of those of you who are with municipalities, do you feel kind of empowered by this plan to take it back and say, we need to kind of implement X, Y, and Z policies, or I know that, it kind of could inform specific roadway projects, but on a policy-wide standpoint, how does this plan support you? How can you use it? How do you see yourself using it going forward?
I can tell you this, I'm not a representative of a municipality, but I live in Lake Worth, and we have a bond issue on the November ballot for $40 million to improve our roads. And there is a dialogue that's going on about a complete streets concept and plugging that into the bond work. And the many of them are neighborhood roads, so we're not dealing with arterials. But I think there can be some impetus here, and that's why I'm videoing today, so I can share it with people and get people interested in some of the concepts.
And there's a concept called complete networks that is sort of a spin-off of complete streets that looks at identifying some of the lower volume, lower speed streets to implement bicycling and walking facilities in a more low-stress environment, and actually sign those so people can understand that they can walk around or bike around in a community. And like Lake Worth, you're one of the few communities in Palm Beach County that does have, at least in the eastern portion, a grid street network where this type of complete networks concept could be implemented.
Just to answer your question, I think it would be useful just sticking with the array. And it's still pretty new in that one, but I think there is enough interest from the city standpoint to improve safety for pets and bikes. We're now in the process of hiring a bike corridor, which is the first position ever that the city had. My position is pretty new there too. We're also sending RFP on the streets to start the bike share program. So with that, there's going to be increase addressing safety for bicyclists. So it's going to be a natural for the array to jump into this vision. We're also going to be doing the bicycle against a master plan, which is never enough for the city. So I think it's all tied together with the regional vision, which is really good. So I'm excited about it.
So make sure you get those bike boxes that were mentioned for Delray into your master
But make
plan.
it come back and photograph.
I think to the point from Lake Worth and from Delray, just going around and hearing about other places around the country and how they're passing referendums and how they're getting money to implement complete streets projects. This data, their number one thing that they say that their tool to make the case is the data. Like, we need these safety improvements because look at what's happening or what's happened. So this is a great tool to launching off point to make a case.
We're also getting complete streets pretty much approved. So some of our assets. So things are happening.
So what information will be available? I mean, you want to have spreadsheets, GIS maps. I mean, is that some of the end product that could be available to the municipalities if we need it in order to, again, make the case for specific improvements in a specific area?
Yeah, well, we definitely have the maps available through the plan, the heat maps that we've already produced. and then, kind of the drill down of the 10 hotspots and segments.
I'm sorry, the maps, GIS maps, or they, I mean,